Hi, everyone, and welcome to Miss Matchmaker Live. We have a great show tonight for you. Of course, we have my co-host, Jeremiah Brewer. Say hello, Jeremiah.
Hello.
And we have a special guest speaker, Jeanson Benoit. Did I say that correct?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Jeanson is actually a relationship, intimacy, and sex coach. And so we invited him to join us. He is local here in Destin with us. And we're just kind of going to talk about the art form of intentions and kind of tie that in with intimacy a little bit, because I think that intimacy is sometimes very much misinterpreted. And people tend to go straight into thinking that it's just talking about sex. But that's not what we're here to do today. That's a topic for another day. And so we want to talk about having the intentions, getting your intentions known, defining your intentions, and just kind of help you to get a more clear understanding of some of the material that we can help you with so that you can enjoy that and use it within your lifestyle, your dating, your relationships, even careers for that matter. So, Jeremiah, I don't know if you worked on that outline at all or if you have it in front of you, but that's basically what we're going to be going by. One of the things that I wanted to start out with is going to be, what is the definition of intention? And I believe the best one that I came up with when I was doing some research online is that a working definition for intention is to have in mind a purpose or plan to direct the mind to aim. Lacking intention, we sometimes stray without meaning or direction. But with it, all the forces of the universe can align to make even the most impossible possible. And I just found that to be the most amazing definition of intention. Do you guys want to add to that at all, just from your own experiences?
I'd say that's a pretty accurate definition. Basically just putting an action in a plan and making that action known, like you said, prior to or ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. I think, go ahead, Jeanson.
I was going to say, I think it's a pretty good definition as well. And I especially like the part about all the parts of the universe come together and align in order for you to, do whatever it is you intend to do. I think that's very important as well.
It is, because I think when you go into anything, whether it's a relationship, a career, even a friendship, if you have clear intentions and you put those intentions out into the universe, then basically what you're doing is you're making sure that those intentions are heard, and therefore you're enabling yourself to succeed with those intentions. So, Jeremiah, I'm not sure where you went there, but your picture went blank on me, so you might want to call back in if you can. But I think there's also one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the 4 intentional steps. And number 1, of course, is going to be to get clear about something you want and write it down. Now, I know that sounds silly, getting clear and writing it down, and with all today's technology, I'm still a list maker. I am still someone who carries a notebook, and I just think that it means more if you take the time to write it down. And sometimes through writing, we gain more clarity. And so the number 1 intentional step I'm going to recommend is write it down. And if you're not as old-fashioned as I am and you want to just make some notes in a Word document, then that works too. But it is a great way to gain some clarity, and it's a great place to start. And then second to that is to share your intentions with someone that is going to be very supportive of you, somebody who is going to be able to back you up and discuss the intentions with you and hold you accountable for taking action. And the more they help you to hold you accountable, the easier it's going to be for you to actually follow through with those intentions. So having an intentions partner, so to speak, an intentions coach, somebody that's going to hold you accountable And that's going to be some more positive reinforcement to get clarity and get you down the path along the right goal. Am I making sense?
Very much so.
Okay. And then next, of course, is to do something today that is going to demonstrate your commitment towards your intention. So think about what it is you can do today and each and every day that you're actually taking action. You're demonstrating an action, action being, a verb, meaning to do something. And so by demonstrating it, that's going to give you a lot more follow through as well. And then, of course, step number 4, the final step, acknowledge that you did what you said you were going to do, and then go ahead and take the next steps all over again. So it's really an ongoing process to be in the mindset of intentions. And what my point of view is, and what I'm trying to share with everybody, is that if you have clarity, if you have an idea set up as to what your clear intentions are, if you take the time to write them down, if you have somebody that you can brainstorm with your intentions that can actually hold you accountable, and then your final step is to follow through, there's no such thing as failure.
I must agree. And
I love it.
I noticed that in the intention sounds a lot like the law of attraction as well. If any of
Absolutely
you are familiar with it. And I really like that because I believe that it's very real and very effective. And so I like the whole list. It worked. It works perfect.
Well, good. Thank you, Jeanson. Do you have anything you want to add to helping to formate and create intentions? Any suggestions you can give someone?
Yes, I would actually add to act as if. So act as if you have already met that intention or already achieved what it is that you'd like to achieve. And that
I
will
love
actually
it.
propel you towards that intention even further and maybe even faster. So that's another little tip.
I love it. And one of the things you've probably heard me say on our past web events is fake it till you make it.
Exactly. Yep.
And sometimes that attitude can get you really far.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah. And I think too that, we want to talk about the relationship between intentions and intimacy. And the reasons that we're tying this in together is because a lot of times we go into relationships, we go into dating, and we're not necessarily thinking about what are our intentions going to be with this person. We're thinking, oh gosh, I have another first date. How is this going to go? And the brain starts going in all different forms and ways, and it kind of confuses us in dating. And so by actually following the steps we just outlined and applying those to dating, and then looking at the different forms of intimacy. And again, when I say intimacy, let me explain what I mean. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about emotional intimacy, intimacy where you can share emotions and feelings. I'm talking about intellectual intimacy, intimacy that gives you the capacity to share the different thoughts, ideas, and interest. I'm talking about social and recreational intimacy that, happens when you're sharing a meal or playing sports or, doing a hobby together. So these are just 3 forms of intimacy that you can work on to perfect your intentions list. And so it really fits together well. And so by holding all of these things together, you're going to have more successful relationships, better dating experiences, most definitely better first dates. And obviously the main goal is to achieve higher, more intimate relationships.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Now, Jeanson, I know you work a lot in the relationship and intimacy aspect of it. Can you share some of your thoughts on this process with us?
Sure, definitely. I do think intention is very important. And one thing I would add is to leave some room for flexibility in order for those intentions, not necessarily the intentions to change, but maybe the path towards the intentions to change. So kind of being open to receiving, let's say you're on a first date and maybe receiving an experience that doesn't go exactly as you planned it out, but it was still a good experience. But you kind of have to let yourself be open for that and be a little flexible for that. So intention is very important, but there's kind of a balance, a dance, so to speak, where you have to balance the intention along with, you know, a level of flexibility as well. So
I could not agree with you more. And I think that that really opens up a big can of worms for us about not only intentions, but misinterpretations versus expectations. And this is where I really wanted to have Jackie join us tonight, but unfortunately she couldn't make it, Jeremiah. But I want to kind of go into this a little bit because everything you just said, Jeanson, really ties into the misinterpretations and the expectations. You know, what does it mean to someone to go out on a date? What does it mean to someone to just hang out? What is dinner versus drinks? And we've had this conversation last week when the three of us got together. So I want to kind of share with everybody else out there. From a guy's point of view, what do you guys mean when you say you want to go to dinner? What do you mean when you say you want to go get drinks? Because I think there's a lot of women that have a misinterpretation that, oh, well, if he's not planning to take me to dinner, then I'm just not worthy in his mind. And they kind of take that as, you know, a little step back, when sometimes as a man, it might be more comfortable for you to start off with just meeting for drinks, or to start off with just, you know, meeting at a coffee shop. So let's hear some of the male POV here. Jeremiah,
like,
you had lots to say. Go.
Yeah, you know, we discussed this a lot, like you said earlier, but it's kind of a catch-22 in the dating realm. You know, a lot of, I guess a lot of people, even the dating sites and things like that, are saying almost to avoid dinner and to do something casual and light because it takes the pressure off of both of you. So they're saying, you know, instead of going dinner, do coffee or do drinks. Just initially, you know, just upon that first initial meeting, just to kind of feel each other out and see, you know, if there's even anything worth pursuing, which that in itself is a catch-22 as well, because then you're judging everything by that one little interaction, you know, where there really wasn't any time to get to know each other than, you know, what kind of coffee or what their drink preference is. So,
Right.
Yeah, I think that it's, I think it really comes down to communicating with the person that you're talking with, you know, and saying, hey, listen, I'm interested in getting to know you. You know, are you comfortable with doing dinner, or would you rather, you know, go do something fun? Which is, you know, that's a conversation you and I've had. I always like to do something fun, and then, you know, kind of reevaluate the situation from there. If you had a good time, you know, you almost kind of give them the option, like, hey, I had a really good time. You hungry? You want to grab some food or something? And kind of open the doorway to see what happens. But
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that I coach all of my clients on, Jeremiah, you're very familiar with this, is to skip dinner. And, you know, a lot of women will think, oh, why isn't he taking me out to dinner? Well, maybe they've been given advice not to do so. And as far as first dates are concerned, think about what your date is going to be like. You know, I typically try to recommend fun dates and, you know, taking the time to figure out, whether it be from your matchmaker, from a friend who's fixed you up, from a dating profile that you just read about this person, try to plan a date according to what their interests are, what their hobbies are, what they like to do. And, you know, I'm a big proponent of, you know, really finding things that are active dates, where there's an activity, you're doing something together, you're working as a team. But most importantly, Jeremiah, I think one of the things you said I want to step back and mention again is to make your intentions clear. And so many times there's that lack of communication that when you ask somebody to go on a first date and you're saying, do you want to go have drinks? Do you want to go have this? How about, you know what? I'd like to get to know you better, and I have a couple of ideas. Would you be interested in this, or do you prefer this? Because if you lead with the I'd like to get to know you better intention up front, you're giving that lady a clear communicative signal that you're interested in her, you're interested in getting to know her better. By just saying to a woman, you know, you want to go grab drinks, you want to go hook up for the afternoon, and we'll see what happens. You want to go just grab some cocktails, whatever. You're not telling her what your intention is, and therefore you're leaving her to guess what your intentions are. And as most women in this day and age are going to assume, it's going to be that you want to jump in her pants. And that may not be the case, but that's what she's going to assume, because you didn't start asking her out with your clear intention.
Right. Or even so, you know, in this day and age, it's not so uncommon for guys and girls to just be friends. And I think one of the worst things you can say to a girl, if you are obviously pursuing her, obviously interested, is just to ask to hang out. Because hanging out is what you do with your buddies. And that means that you're basically just treating her like an ordinary person versus someone that you're actually interested in.
Absolutely. And, you know, that phrase, let's go hang out. Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting an echo, Christina.
Oh.
Yeah. But that phrase hang out, I think that really has done so much damage to today's dating world, damage. And it's just, you know, it comes across, you know, as a woman, I'm speaking for women in general. If you guys disagree out there, ladies, please chime in the comments. But when you hear that phrase hang out, that doesn't give you an intention. You know, it's not, hey, I'd like to get to know you better, or hey, I'd like to spend more time with you. I think it's really important that you get that intention out as you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Jeanson, why don't you jump in here and talk a little bit from the coaching aspect on what it is that you would recommend as far as being able to speak those intentions as you're asking somebody out. How would you go about that?
Okay. I really like your approach as far as doing something fun first and kind of reassessing the situation after that and seeing where things go next. I'm not totally opposed to dinner, though. I know we spoke about this. One of the reasons for that is because I'm usually hungry. So if I'm speaking from a personal standpoint, I would be very clear that, you know, usually I just ask the woman, what's your favorite restaurant, or what place would you like to try that you haven't tried? And, you know, let's meet up and, you know, get to know each other and talk some more in person. Mm-hmm. And that's how, you know, I just lay it out there, and, you know, it doesn't have to be, I never mentioned the word date, and I don't know if I ever have mentioned the word date. So that's something else that people may be able to take in, and, you know, it just takes the pressure off. Usually words and actions can put a lot of pressure on people and just kind of have different connotations to them. So if you take that out of the equation, then now, you know, that's no longer there. So just not even using the word date may make all the difference in the world. And it may also allow for that flexibility in that room for you guys to see where things go, as opposed to coming in with certain, you know, specific plans, I guess you can say, on how things should go.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but also, you know, I'm going to take the opposite side as well, which is by not being upfront about your intentions and using the word date, you're not giving the woman the opportunity to accept or reject you. So that might just be a safety zone for you.
You know what? For me personally, I've never liked the word, only because I feel like it takes away from the opportunity. How about if on our first date, things go well, but we decide after, dinner and everything or whatever else that, we just want to be friends and we don't necessarily want to go any further. To me, the first meeting is just that. It's and that's the only reason why I think the word date just kind of puts that connotation that, this is going to lead to us being romantic in some form or fashion. And that's not always the case, actually.
Right.
I think it's important to, just kind of use your words in a certain way. If you do like to use the word date, I think that's fine too. I do think, though, that it's another form of kind of showing my intention is to get to know you versus for us to, get into a relationship, because that may or may not be where it leads. So
what are some other words, specific words that you would use to show your intentions and to make a woman feel comfortable that you're not just after sex?
Well, one thing that I would definitely tell her up front is that, and this is not a word, this is more like a phrase or a sentence, but I'm more interested in getting to know you as a person versus having sex with you. Because in all honesty, I've experienced sexual connection with somebody I really care about. And that's very different from just being sexually active with somebody you just met. So, and we have conversations about that, and I let them know that that's not really where I'm going with this, because if so, then why even go the whole route of going on a date and, getting to know each other more and all that stuff. But other words I can use are, let's meet up to get to know each other. We can also say, think of specific phrases. I'm usually very straightforward, so I don't have a lot of phrases already planned out. I just kind of say what my intentions are, which are let's meet up and let's get to know each other more. Usually we've already been speaking over the phone, so it's the first meetup to kind of get to talk face to face, get more of a feel for each other face to face.
Well, I think, if you are using this and it's successful in your own life, then that says something. And if it's something that you're teaching to your clients, then that speaks even louder. What I would add to that is to add more intention to it, to be very much more open. Not only do I want to get to know you, but I want to know what you're all about. I want to get to know what you like, what you don't like, what your interests are, what your hobbies are. And so that way, with giving more verbiage, you're reassuring her that you don't just want to hang out for what she might misinterpret to be just a one-night stand or whatnot. So the only thing I would add to what you're saying is to be more specific and give more verbiage. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what your interests are. I want to get to know what your hobbies are. I want to get to know who you are as a person. I'm not saying we're going to end up married one day, and I'm not saying I'm going to end up taking you home tonight. I just want the opportunity to spend some time with you and see how compatible we are.
Most definitely. I agree. That's a good idea.
I think
Jeremiah, I know you've had a lot of experience with this, so I'm going to toss it to you for a minute.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just your verbiage and also how you take charge. I would say in like a hangout situation, you guys kind of come to an agreement. And you're like, oh, what do you want to do? Oh, you figure something out. But I think that if you're being intentional about pursuing somebody, it's, and not to be, sexist or whatever, but it's up to the guy to come up with a plan and to basically share that plan with the girl he's, chasing or interested in. So, I would verb it as, hey, I'd really like to take you out to dinner, or hey, I'd really like to take you go play, miniature golf, and then maybe go grab some food afterwards or something like that, and just spend some time with you. That's just kind of an example of how I would word it or verb it. So.
I've taught you well. I want to address Christina. She's got a.
I don't think I've ever mentioned the word date. just kind of, I don't know. Like I said, I just think that there's a way to really present your intentions without making it uncomfortable or, putting pressure on. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to jump over to Christina. She's got a long little question here in the comment section. As a woman, if my intentions are to meet a man for the ultimate purpose of pursuing a relationship, how do I make my intentions known and ensure the man I'm with is on the same page? Okay, sorry, that just didn't come out right. Without sounding crazy or intense or too serious, etc. I'm not interested in casual hookups, and I would rather not invest time with a man that has those intentions. Ultimately, how do I approach the subject and interpret his words to make sure I understand his intentions? Great question, Christina. First of all, before we jump into that, can I get you to call in, honey? Do you have a webcam and mic? You can answer in the comment section, but I think you have a lot to add to this conversation if we're going to specifically address your question. Just scroll over the open box and it'll turn purple to call in. You can click on that if you've got a webcam and mic. I'd love to have you join the conversation. I'll accept you in once you do. So guys, what do you want to advise Christina with? She's obviously looking for a relationship, but doesn't want to come off like a relationship pursuer, so to speak, or the crazy woman who's just ready to jump into a relationship. I mean, you're from the male POV here, so come on, let's hear from you guys.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a really common issue that I hear a lot of women deal with, because it's kind of considered taboo for, quote, a girl to pursue a man, which I agree with to a certain degree. However, I do think that if you are interested in a guy, in my personal opinion, if a girl continues to place herself in my path or in my sights, eventually she's going to catch my eye, and I'm going to decide whether or not I'm interested in her or not. And you'll pick up on things like that. I've actually had one of my relationships in the past. I never even really noticed the girl, but I noticed she kept coming to all these different events, and she just really was. Every time I turned around, she was like right there beside me, and I got to get to know her. And eventually, I was like, oh, I think I might be interested in this person. We ended up being in a relationship for a while. So far as the other part, I mean, it comes back down to your intentions. If you have some boundaries that you're trying to set up, you're saying that you're not looking for a hookup, that you're really wanting a relationship. I guess that's probably something that you could casually discuss during the first time you actually hang out one-on-one, or maybe it's even something that you guys can kind of discuss prior to that, just hanging out with, like, if you're with a group of people or something like that. So, I'm sure I've got more, but that's kind of what I've got in my head right now.
All right, Jeanson, you want to add to Alec?
Yes, sure. I would say to answer the question about how do you phrase the fact that you're looking for a relationship and not anything casual, I would say just go ahead and say it, just how you said it, just how you wrote it. I mean, that's very clear and that's very precise, and there's no ambiguity in that statement. And if you end up dealing with someone who is not able to handle that, or sees you as, like you're moving too fast, or feels in any way, I guess you can say, threatened, then that may not be the person you want to move further with anyway, in all honesty. Because you have to be able to speak openly and communicate openly. And if somebody's not able to hear your side or hear what it is that you are interested in or what you desire, then things are kind of off to not such a great start. And then also in terms of Christina says, how do I approach the subject and interpret his words to make sure I understand his intentions? Well, the same would go for him. I would say if he's being straightforward, hopefully he's being very straightforward about his intentions with his words, but also with his actions, and everything's kind of going together. And and Jeremiah laughs because I think we kind of touched on that actions have to be congruent with the words. It can't just be the words. And so you just kind of look at all of those, not just one thing or the other. And usually a person will kind of tell you what they're about and what they are after or what they want based on both their words and their actions. And if all else fails, go by their actions.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Very true.
Definitely. Yeah, very good point, Jeanson, because, people can say whatever it is they think that you want to hear, but it's their behavior that's going to tell you what their true agenda is. And so, Christina, if it's somebody who you've just met, you're on a first, second, or third date, and you've made your intentions clear, you've said, look, and I'm going to give you a little bit of extra verbiage, Christina, I would really go a little bit further into it. I'm extremely busy with my career. However, a relationship is a priority for me. I do not date a bunch of people. The only people that I'm interested in dating are those that are also interested in pursuing a relationship. I can certainly understand if you're not at the same point in your life that I'm not. The only thing I ask is that you be completely open and honest about it so that we don't waste each other's time. And then as far as interpreting what his intentions are, watch his behaviors. If he backs out and sits back in his chair, or if his arms start getting crossed and you're getting bad body language, he's not at that same place. One of the things that you can do that I think would help you tremendously is just to kind of get an idea and a little crash course on body language, which I'm sure would be a great topic for one of our series, Jeremiah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if he's giving you that standoff body language and his actions are, not in line, right then and there. One of the things I try to tell people is don't make a judgment call on someone based on a first experience, on a first date, and really try to get to know that person, but understand that a first date, a first impression is not always who that person truly is. And I will also say this, and I'm not trying to say anything bad here, boys, but bear with me. There's a lot of guys out there that will say they're not interested in a relationship when they really are. It's just that they're too afraid of rejection, so they don't say that they're interested in a relationship. So sometimes that fear of rejection actually gets put ahead of everything else, and you'll hear the words, but their actions may show you that they are ready for a relationship. So, dating is kind of like mind reading. You really have to polish up all of your skills, understand people, learn effective ways to communicate and express yourself, define clear intentions, and follow through on them. And I think one of the important skills that we really haven't covered just yet is how to have effective communication. And this goes in any type of situation, whether it's dating, relationships, parenting, careers, whatnot. It can really be applied in every aspect of life, but it also will be very helpful to use the effective communication and to learn how to use effective communication when you're looking at your dating situation, very specifically in regards to intentions. And so, number one in effective communication is to hear what is being said, to actively listen. That actually means not to listen to respond, but to listen to hear, using your ears when you listen, not your mouth. So, hear what is being said, number one. Number two, maintaining good eye contact. How can you have a conversation with someone that is kind of looking over there and looking over here, or maybe if you're at a restaurant, we'll say, and they're just checking out the scenery, their skills in communication, as far as I'm concerned, are not good enough for you to accept that person as somebody who's willing to have a relationship because they can't even maintain eye contact. If you can't maintain eye contact, that's also a symbol of low confidence or low self-esteem. So you want to practice that maintaining eye contact, and you also want to see how others do with it, because that's a very good indicator as to where they are at. Of course, next is to be attentive and to be present. And I think this is key in almost any type of dating or relationship situation. Leave your phone in the car. You know, don't be distracted by text messages or Facebooks or tweets or, you know, things that are coming in on your phone. You have to understand that if you are with that person, be attentive and be present, be in the moment. And you probably heard me say this before 100 times, but the greatest compliment you can give someone is your undivided attention. So know that that is part of effective communication. You also want to be able to keep an open mind. Jeanson, you had mentioned this earlier on, but keeping an open mind and not using judgment or jumping to conclusions will also be a tool in effective communication as well as intentions. So, you know, being able to be flexible and allow yourself, giving yourself permission to change your mind, I think is very important when it comes to communication and intentions. Of course, there's empathy and empathy building. If you can practice your empathy skills, this will take you very far in all types of situations. But empathy building is very important when it comes to communication. And then also you want to be able to give regular feedback and reflect upon your feelings in a non-judgmental way. You want to be able to present feedback to the person you're communicating with, but you want to do it in a manner that says, hey, I'm here, I'm listening, I understand, I feel for your situation, and this is how I feel. And kind of give them your feedback in that manner, not necessarily in a, you know, judgmental manner or form. You guys want to add anything to that?
The only thing I was thinking of, it kept running through my mind, and it was going back to with Christina's question, is I feel like also when you're actually starting to hang out with this person, you want to kind of watch the settings that you put yourself in. You know, if you're not wanting to be in anything physical too soon, don't allow yourselves to, you know, be in a situation where you're just by yourselves alone, or you're drinking too much to where you can't control your decisions or your inhibitions, you know, things like that. It's very easy. It's very easy to get caught up in that situation, you know, where you're on a quote romantic walk on the beach, and then, you know, everything just kind of falls apart. So I don't know, I just had to put that out there.
Well, and I think that leads into another point that we discussed the other day that I want to bring up, which is, you know, the intimacy aspect of sex. And we did cover this, the three of us, when we started out planning tonight's event. But what happens when two people come together that have different opinions or are on different aspects of when it is okay to have the intimate sexual relationship? When is it okay to get to that point? I know a lot of people, even nowadays, that are still, you know, holding on to that, I'm going to wait till I'm married. I know a lot of people that are trying to do that and sometimes cannot do that successfully. And then I also know there's a lot of people out there that just don't care and they're open to intimate relationships at any given point. So I think in part of your intention planning and defining intentions, you need to be able to address some of the issues that come up with the physical aspects of relationships. And like Jeremiah said, if you're not going to put yourself on that part, if you're not going to be the person that is going to want to be in that position, don't put yourself in situations where it's probably going to happen.
Right.
Jeanson, what do you have to say about all this? This is your area of expertise here.
Well, I think that conversation, and a lot of people may disagree, but I think that conversation is one that needs to be had very early on, in in the dating or whatever you want to call it, in the relationship, because that's very important. That can be a very important aspect of a romantic relationship, and so you definitely want to know where each other stands on that, and you don't want to be surprised. Let's say you're the person that's, that doesn't have any objections to sexual intimacy before marriage. You don't want to be surprised when you try to move things further, and then the person says, no, I'm not really, trying to do that. And on the other side, you don't want to be the person that's, being advanced on or being advanced upon and not necessarily wanting that. So That's one of those conversations that goes right in line with, intentions. And that's an intention that you both should definitely, discuss early on, get that out the way, and kind of know if that's something that you both want to try to work on together if you're not on the same page, or if, like we said earlier, you can just not necessarily waste each other's time if it's that important to each of you, and you can just move on and find somebody else who's on the same page.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think too, part of that is, going back to the intentions is setting your boundaries when you're, working on, okay, what are my intentions for dating this month? And like I said, you get out your piece of paper, you get out your pen, you start writing things down. What are your intentions? Well, include that, and also include the aspect of setting boundaries. What are the boundaries that you're open to, and what are the boundaries that you're okay with crossing? I think boundaries and setting them are very much hand in hand with intentions. And so it almost becomes like two lists that you're working on, and two issues that you need to clarify before you even set out and pursue dating. Jeremiah, I know you and I have talked a lot about boundaries in the past. Do you have anything you want to add about clarifying boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bolder that you are about that, the better. I actually have a couple of female friends, and you hear the story where girls go, "I don't kiss on first dates." They flat out tell the person during the first date, "It is my intention to not have sex until I get married." And they say, if this is something that you're okay with, then we can move forward. If not, we'll just end this here. And a lot of times the guys are like, "I'm out," and they leave. And all I can say for the girls is good for you. You know what you value, and you stand firm by it.
Well, and the other thing too is by being able to come out and say something like that, talking about what your boundaries are, it allows you also to be vulnerable. And I think becoming vulnerable is a very important aspect of being open to love and relationships. If you're not vulnerable and you're not putting yourself out there, maybe it's because of fear, maybe it's because you've been hurt in the past, but the more vulnerable you become and the more of yourself you give out to these people that are meeting and that come to your world, the more it's going to be able to open up your heart so that you're ready for the right person to come in. And I think that sometimes when we're setting boundaries in our intentions, we forget about vulnerability, because it can be a very painful topic for people. But what you have to really understand and recognize is you have to retrain your brain so that you can take vulnerability and view it as a more positive aspect rather than a negative one, because being vulnerable just opens your heart, it opens your soul, and it opens so many doors to let love come through. And so really it's just a change of your perception and what you define vulnerability in.
Yeah.
Jeanson, I'm going to throw that one at you, because I know you've talked a lot about being vulnerable and allowing vulnerability when it comes to intimacy. You want to add to that for a minute?
Yes, definitely. Vulnerability, like you said, is that aspect of opening up, and it's hard to let something great in if you're not open to letting something great in. So if you're closed off and you have a wall up, or you're just not ready to extend yourself, then you can't expect the same in return as well. So it's kind of that old saying of, you get what you give, and it's the truth. If you give all of you and you're totally open and you're kind of free with your intentions and your desires and everything like that, then you may not get that back, but you definitely have the opportunity to get it back by being in that space versus not being in that space. And so it can lead to, bigger and better things for you the more you open up and the more you allow yourself to be vulnerable. And like you said, also,
Absolutely.
vulnerability doesn't have to be a negative thing. There could be pain that comes out of it, but it doesn't have to be. There could be something really great that comes out of it that's one of a kind that you would have missed because you didn't allow yourself to be vulnerable in that moment. And so vulnerability is very important, in my opinion.
Yep. That's funny. I'm getting text messages and Facebook messages from people who can't comment because they're not signed in. So I'm trying to keep up with all screens. I apologize. Well, the other thing too that I want to add to vulnerability is to be able to be generous with yourself. Allow yourself to take interest in your feelings, and this will help you to open up with vulnerability. Be generous with yourself, be intentional with yourself. Don't give yourself unrealistic expectations, just like you wouldn't put them on anyone else. What we're trying to give you guys out there is just a little bit of self-knowledge that we have, that we can share so that you can create your intentions, you can use effective communication, you can express yourself in a meaningful way and a way that can be respected and appreciated. You can become vulnerable, you can avoid misinterpretations, and kind of be realistic with your own expectations. So, it really all ties together. If we've got any questions, if anyone wants to, feel free to join us in the comments. I'm going to open up this other see if anyone who is signed in wants to jump in. Of course, feel free to jump in and add, your 2 cents. There's one other part of this while we're still got a few minutes left that I wanted to talk about. I did read an article and watch a couple of YouTube videos from a Dr. Dane Eyre, and he's evaluated what he calls the 5 elements of intimacy, and what they are is honor, to treat with regard, trust, the person in front of you is the person in front of you, trusting that you know what you know. So trust within yourself and within others. Choosing what's going to work for you and knowing that that choice is going to be what is best for you. Secondly, of course, thirdly, he adds vulnerability, which we've already covered a lot. No shame, no judging, no barriers with awareness. And then, of course, the allowance. And with allowance, he means that everything the other person chooses is just an interesting point of view. And so, Christina, I hope if you're still listening, this might make a little bit of sense to you. But with allowance, you've got to put yourself in the situation that you can put those words out there, you can express yourself, and no matter what that person chooses, that's okay. That's their choice, and you're allowing them to make that choice. You're kind of like the rock in the stream that stays right there and lets the water just pass them by. And so I think that really applies to your situation, Christina, because those are the kind of guys that you want to not be with, so just let it all flow by. Allowance is a great way to do that. See, we lost Jeremiah somehow. He'll probably be calling back in. But yeah, if anybody's got any questions or you want to jump in, feel free. I do want to cover a couple of things. If you are visiting from my website, you have the opportunity to take advantage of some really cool things that we've got going on right now. I put this out there. If you're visiting from the other platform, feel free to go to my website at www.missmatchmakerlive.com. Click on April 18th and you can jump right back in and you won't miss anything here on the platform. But we've got some really good things that we are offering. We're, of course, asking you to share a little bit of love with us by liking us on Facebook and signing up for notifications so that you don't miss another event and you get your notifications in. And also to make sure that you're subscribed to events. And when you do this, there are some great things that you can receive with a promo code called event, which will be available through midnight tonight. So go to Miss Matchmaker Live if you're not there already. Scroll down the page underneath the video from tonight, and you'll see those great gifts that are going to be available to you through midnight. Then I also wanted to take a minute, I know we lost Jeremiah here, and let everybody know that we are running a online contest this month. And you don't necessarily have to be local to join us on this contest, but it is not only for singles, but for couples as well. And we are having a contest for the cutest couple, and we're having a contest for the most eligible bachelor and bachelorette. And of course, most prizes are local, but there are some prizes from those that I'm willing to offer. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a link up here in the comments section so that you guys can have it. Give me 1 second. We lost Jeanson as well. But there's a comment there with the link to the contest. So go ahead and check it out and get your registrations in. Of course, it is a charity that we're sponsoring, which is Children in Crisis. And all of the proceeds from that contest will be going to Children in Crisis. We have open enrollment through the month of April. And then for May, we're going to have our voting. And then in June, we're actually going to have a sunset social over 790 on the Gulf. So make sure you're subscribed to all of our events. And unfortunately, we lost both Jeremiah and Jeanson. I do want to say thank you both for joining us, and thank you to all of our guests that have taken the time out to watch tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to email me privately. My email is denise@missmatchmaker.net. And Terry, thank you so much. Hope you had fun, girl. Wish you could on. And we're going to go ahead and unlock the replay for tonight's event so that if anybody missed it, they can go ahead and watch it at any point over the next 3 days. So that's it, guys. Good night. And I'm going to leave you with one more link. If you've got a few minutes and you want to stay on, I found this most inspiring video the other day I wanted to share with you guys. It has a lot to do with everything that we've covered tonight. And, you know, just stick on for another few minutes. It's kind of short, but it's really wonderful video. So let me get that dropped in. I'm going to leave you with that to ponder over for the night. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
See you, everyone.